That's good. Hello, everyone.
Hello. Hello, how are you going?
I'm Nicky.
And I'm Owen.
And we're from the Computing Academy. I think we know some of you already. And we're going to be chatting with you folks and with one another over the next hour. And there, right on cue, is James, who's going to be joining us for a little while. This is the first of our webinars. This is a trial to see whether this is actually useful for you. The best way that we can find out whether this is useful for you is to actually get some feedback. The first thing to do is there's a little questions box where you can ask and vote on questions. We've brainstormed a few questions based on things that we've been asked recently in the via email. Just to get you started, you can vote on them. You can come up with your own questions, but otherwise it's just going to be us chatting for a while, which is probably not that bad a way to spend the afternoon for us, certainly. Let's make it actually useful, though.
Okay, so what are we going to answer first, Nicky?
Well, at the moment, none of the questions have any votes yet, so get voting, people who are watching. But otherwise, why don't we actually, since James is here, get him to give us a bit of an overview of the ACA and who we are and what we are, just as a short version. Most of these people may know, but just in case we've got any new faces.
Right. So welcome, everyone. Thanks for coming along to our first webinar of the season. It's great to have you here. For those of you that don't know me, I'm James Curran. I'm the Academic Director of the Australian Computing Academy. And the purpose of the Academy really is to provide support and leadership for teachers that are trying to deliver the digital technologies curriculum right around Australia. We're involved in a range of projects. The biggest one, which is mostly what we're going to be talking about today, will be the National Digital Technologies Challenges. And that project involves a combination of running 2-day and 1-day professional development workshops on the digital technologies curriculum right around Australia. And I believe, looking at our questions later on, we've got a question about when is the next ACA workshop near me. So we'll later on in the webinar, we'll be pointing you in that direction. And then also, in addition to running professional development, we are creating what we're calling Digital Technologies Challenges. And they are a series of classroom activities designed to help you deliver the most technically challenging parts of the digital technologies curriculum. And obviously, coding is one of the things that right now, both in the media and politics, is getting a lot of airtime. Coding is one of the things that we're focusing on in the DT challenges, but there's a bunch of other things as well, data analysis and so on, that we're going to talk about right throughout the development of this project. So we've got a lot of challenges that are already up on the ACA website. I don't know, with this cool webinar tool, can we easily share in our screen?
We
Nicky?
can, in fact, easily share in our screen.
So
I've just shared, added in a blog post we have on how to sign up for those challenges.
All right, do you want to switch us through to...
Here we go. And we can look at
the ACA website
challenges specifically, or the ACA website.
So
We're back.
All right. Sorry about that, everyone. You know, as we're doing webinars for the first time, we've just learnt an important lesson about not relying on Wi-Fi. So,
even university Wi-Fi.
Well, you know, university Wi-Fi. We're currently broadcasting from my office, which just occasionally does tend to operate a bit like a Faraday cage. So I could have warned these guys about that. Next time we'll have a cable. We'll have to have
that cable means dongles, and dongles is just challenging.
Yes, Sarah, absolutely. You can't trust those electrons. It's even worse than that. Can't even trust the magnetic spectrum, I'm afraid. Where were we? Nicky was sharing.
Yes, indeed. Maybe that was not the trouble.
It's not the trouble.
We were talking about the challenges, and on the ACA website. That's where we were.
Yeah. So.
I believe James was saying that we're a little bit biased in thinking that our challenges and our resources are pretty good.
Yes.
But that's a good place to start, I reckon.
Yeah. So we're going to go through these a little bit more detail later on. But just to give you a high-level overview of what we're doing, we've got a digital technology challenge which is designed for either the year 5, 6, or 7, 8 bands of the Australian curriculum. And they're a mixture of digital technologies on their own, which we call pure digital technologies challenges, and then digital technologies plus X, where X is another learning area. So Owen's just clicked on the DT plus X, and you can see that 3 examples highlighted there. The Year 5 Blockly, which is a visual programming environment course plus biology, the Year 7 Python plus biology, and the Year 7 Blockly plus geometry. Now, the reason that those, rather than saying Year 5, 6, or Year 7 and 8, is that the national curriculum in science and mathematics is on a year-by-year level. So this explicitly covers content from the Year 7 or Year 5 science and maths national curriculum as well. So it's genuine integration of 2 different learning areas. In addition to that, if you click on a different filter, so let's just have a look at Year 5. Let's go Year 5, 6 first. So these are the set of challenges that are available for the Year 5, 6 band. You can do the same thing for Year 7 and 8. You can also look at challenges according to the language that they're written for. So we've got Blockly, Python. Arduino is not really a language in itself, but it's a whole environment. And so if you've got the Arduino Explorer board, say, for example, if you've participated in the University of Sydney's MadMaker activity, and Nicky's now holding it up to the screen, but she's forgotten that she's mostly sharing.
James doesn't understand modern webinar technology.
I understand that, but
yeah,
it's a tiny little, you're like about 5 pixels, Nicky. We'll put that up when we go full screen again in a minute. So we've got a range of challenges, and by the end of the project, we'll be developing at least 18 of these challenges, so there'll be a whole lot more there as well. We're in the process of negotiating, developing challenges for Year 3 and 4 as well. That hasn't been finalised yet, but we're hoping that that will be coming in the next few months too.
And we're also writing a few more challenges also involving the BBC Microbits.
Yeah.
Coming soon. These are very cute.
So they're the challenges. The 2-day workshops we run involve a mixture of content about the digital technologies curriculum, and that includes breaking apart the 10 key concepts in the curriculum. The key concepts really are a central set of organizing ideas for the curriculum itself, and we help pull those apart for teachers. Then we do a series of practical activities, a bunch of unplugged activities, and then on the second day we get stuck in on what's largely computer programming activities, both a combination of Python and Blockly, and then we do a bit of Microbit in there as well.
All right, that's a pretty good overview of who we are and what we do primarily. So we've got more votes now. It's so exciting. The top voted question here is, do we have any plan for interactive resources on platforms other than Grok Learning? Yes, we do. Owen, do you want to talk about this?
Okay, so we've got a series of offline versions of our DT challenges that are going to be released in the next couple of months. So that'll be in an offline version where the content will be exactly the same. You can interact with the code in the environment, but it won't do the auto marking that is available in the Grok learning platform. So there'll be no teacher dashboard and no automated marking where you can download all of the marks, but the students can interact with all of the activities in an offline manner, particularly for those schools who don't have a particularly good internet connection or particularly remote. There's a teacher on Flinders Island, just north of Tasmania, that writes to us weekly almost, asking when these unplugged versions will be released. They do require quite a bit of development work. So that's something that we'll be releasing hopefully in the next couple of months. Yeah. And that will be for all of our content.
Yeah. So that was a question from Cherie, was it?
Yes.
So Cherie, just if I could ask you, what motivated that particular question? Are you at a school with low connectivity? What are you? What could we help with that would answer that? You don't need to answer that instantly, but if you just want to put a message in on chat, we can come back to that as well.
Yep. So the next highest voted question, I feel like I'm announcing a prize or something, but the prize keeps changing.
Well, I don't think we should give out prizes for 3 votes yet. We should have higher aspirations of ourselves and our audience. But sure.
All right. So, what's a good way of introducing networks? This question on introducing networking, which is part of the 7-8 band of the curriculum, is one that we get quite often. We have 2 main suggestions on introducing networking that we would recommend to start off with. The first part is an unplugged activity, and then backing that up with an implementation version using the BBC Microbits. So the unplugged activity that we really like is called Tablets of Stone. So this is one of the CS Unplugged activities, although we do a slightly different variation of that. And I believe we're going to be writing that up in a blog post coming soon. What this entails is getting students to write down messages 1 letter by 1 letter in groups of 6 and send them over a simulated network. And that network involves aspects of networking that we perhaps interacted with earlier in this webinar, dodgy routers. And students learn about some of the complexities of making sure are actually understandable when they get to the other end of the network. So if packets are dropped or if packets arrive out of order, they have to figure out what to do. The activity involves the students then designing a protocol to protect against these problems. And that activity basically involves students running around the classroom and having fun. And then you can translate that into networking with the BBC Microbit. Do you want to talk about these and the radio? We know how much you love the radio.
Before we do, it's worth noting, if you haven't spotted it, that Owen has just pasted in the URL for the Tablets of Stone activity. It's one of those activities that's in the previous generation of CS Unplugged activities. So you won't yet find it on the new fancy version of their website. I hope it's coming soon, but you can still find it in the classic version. So the URL's there, and that also, that URL will, if you go to the classic.csunplugged.org, you can get all of those old materials if you're looking for something you've used there in the past.
So as far as translating that networking to an implementation side of things, Microbits.
The best way that we've found to do that is with the BBC Microbit, because it has a Bluetooth antenna on it, but you can program these in MicroPython, and by doing that, you can't actually fit MicroPython and Bluetooth on the board at the same time, and so it doesn't have all the Bluetooth stack or all of the Bluetooth functionality, but it does let us access the Bluetooth radio, which lets us send short messages and just broadcast them to everyone. And so just by doing that, we can send different messages on one of 100 different channels. And with another microbit, we can receive those messages. And just by sending and receiving messages, that's exactly what is creating a network. So it's actually possible to create 100 different networks in your classroom at the one time in order to have students make some devices that test out this network functionality. And so teachers and network administrators don't often want to let students access the school network if they want to test it out and see what the network's
for some reason. I don't know why.
See what their network's actually capable of. But by making wireless networks inside the classroom using the microbit, you can introduce some of these concepts such as security. So for example, if you want to be the one, or one of your students will figure out how to flood the network on a particular channel, how do we devise a protocol to counteract that flooding and just ignore all those flooded messages, for example? And so you can introduce those concepts like security just using the BBC microbit without affecting the networking infrastructure.
And there's a few different projects that you can do in doing that, some of which we're actually going to be integrating into some of our future DT challenges that we're going to be writing up. But we're always happy to talk about, Owen and I especially are very happy to talk about microbits at length and projects that you can do using them. So if you want some more details, ask a question, send us an email.
Yeah, and I'm just going to go back to, thanks Sheree for responding. I note your concerns about difficulty for students with low vision. If you could, just so that we can really see the extent of the problem, if you'd be prepared to take a screenshot for us at some point about how it's not working at the zoomed in level that those particular students need, and either send that to, let's just make it help@ACA. Owen, do you want to just whack in the, send an email to help@ACA with that screenshot in. We always want to know where the platform is not delivering for all students. So if you can show us an example, we'll endeavor at that level of Zoom to try and make it work for your students. So thanks for that great feedback.
Yeah. All right.
Find one more question for me to attack, and then I'm going to leave you guys.
I think the one is how do you get other teachers on board is a good one.
Oh, okay, right. Okay, so digital technologies versus the ICT capability. Well, I think that the first thing is there's a lot of confusion out there about exactly what is the difference between these two things. And there's probably a lot of teachers that in some form or other have taught something that looks like the ICT or some of the ICT capabilities. And that's where teachers are going to be mostly comfortable right now. And the trick is to still be delivering the best of the ICT capabilities across all learning areas, but at the same time, actually starting to genuinely address digital technologies. And the comparison that I like to make is to think of the other capabilities, the general capabilities in the curriculum, and how they relate to the learning areas themselves. So, for example, literacy has its natural home in the English curriculum. No one would doubt that. Numeracy has a natural home in the mathematics curriculum. In the same way, the general capabilities as a core set of skills live within digital technologies. No question there. The question is, what about in the reverse direction? And in the reverse direction, no one would believe that all there was to mathematics is numeracy and that all there was to English was literacy. Those subjects have a deep intellectual tradition as a separate subject that exists beyond those basic skills as a user. So, if you're literate, you have English, manipulating English in various ways as a set of skills. But beyond that, there's a lot to learn about English that makes it a whole subject. So, for example, understanding and critiquing Shakespeare is well beyond the set of skills that you would need to claim to be literate. In fact, probably the vast portion of people that are English literate have not actually sat down and tried to understand King Lear, for example. At the same time, there's a lot more to mathematics that goes far, far beyond numeracy and the things that we have in the general capability. And it's the same with digital technologies, that some of the skills that are general capabilities are taught within digital technologies, but there's a lot of digital technologies like coding, like deep data analysis, like data representation, all of these things that go far beyond the basic idea of ICT skills, and things that we think of as productivity skills and productivity tools and things like that. So if a teacher wants to understand at a philosophical level what the difference between those two things are, then connecting it with literacy and numeracy is important. The other part about it is, we have the adage that every teacher is a literacy teacher and every teacher is a numeracy teacher. In the same way, the Australian curriculum has mandated that every teacher is an ICT general capabilities teacher. So that means that skills like word processing, like using spreadsheets in a fairly simple way, like communicating with others and collaborating, those skills are skills that we expect students to actually develop across all learning areas. Coding, on the other hand, is a very technical skill that we would expect students to learn within digital technologies. Now, further down the track, what we hope is that those skills will actually become skills that teachers can rely on, that students have actually learned within digital technologies. So one of the things that I really hope to see is teachers in, say, science or mathematics in year 9 through to 12, knowing that students are capable of doing some programming, to actually incorporate some programming activities to make their learning areas more engaging and use more authentic data and all kinds of things like that. Now, in terms of how you actually get teachers on board, I think there are a whole bunch of different strategies, and we could spend an entire webinar just talking about different ways of engaging teachers. But I think that the first path is to ask teachers what aspect of students' lives and students' future life has not been changed significantly, and often to the point of nearly being unrecognizable by digital technologies. And almost any area of their life that they say, well, this hasn't, usually the counter argument is, well, it's only a matter of time. I mean, it was only a few years ago that we would say, well, transport hasn't been affected by digital technologies that much. Look at all these taxi drivers. Well, every time I step into a taxi now, Uber and its competitors make up about 99% of the discussion. And that was technology that was just waiting to happen to revolutionize that particular industry. And I think it doesn't matter whether you're working with students that are likely to head towards accounting or agriculture, right through to zoology, that the thing that they're doing is going to be impacted by not just the skills that we have in the ICT capability, but by creating new technology that substantially changes the way that we work. And it's not just work, it's also play, it's how we socialize, it's how we interact with each other. No aspect of our life hasn't been changed by this. And you ultimately are helping students make the decision, do I want to be someone that passively receives this technology and just uses it in the way that other people see the world should be? Or do I want to be someone that has the skills to actually contribute to that technical direction that all of humanity is going along? And and there are many other arguments about jobs and economics and so on. But to me, the fundamental argument about, are we equipping our kids to be the masters of this future universe, or are we expecting them to just be passive receivers of whatever technology is coming out of places like the US that may have a different approach to this stuff? And that's not a future that I want for our kids, and that's why the writing team wrote the curriculum the way we did. Sorry, the danger of doing a webinar with me is it's just a series of rants, one after the other.
Do you need a drink?
No, I can go like this for hours without any form of sustenance. Don't worry.
It's terrifying. So, just to bring that back to one thing I wanted to jump on. Every facet of our lives is really being impacted by technology. Case in point, I know a fantastic scientist who works with chickens. Specifically, she designs user interfaces for chickens so that they can have more control over their environment, whether they're in cages or in free-range facilities, but training chickens to use UI. It's pretty cool. I know chickens.
You have some strange friends.
I do have some strange friends, but that's not a surprise to you. The other thing that I wanted to give a plug for in terms of how to get the conversation going for digital technologies versus general ICT capabilities are these fantastic cards we have. So in fact, let's do a pop quiz. Haha. Does James know his general ICT capabilities from digital technologies curriculum concepts? Okay, here we go. We've got number 1, algorithms.
Why are we asking me when don't we have some funky polling capability on this interface?
Possibly.
Algorithms. Come on, that's easy. That's one of the 10 key concepts.
Digital citizenship.
Digital citizenship. Gosh. I'd say general capability, but
general ICT capability.
Hooray.
Phew.
Good. All right.
Safe. What about data representation?
Sounds like a key concept to me. You're making this easy,
digital
Nicky.
Technologies.
Digital technologies.
Robotics.
Well, this kind of depends on how you do it, but I'm going to go digital technologies as well.
Okay, here's one. Visualize information.
Right. So this is the kind of example. Come on, Nicky, do the reveal. Stop making the audience be scared about it.
In this particular one, we've got general ICT and digital technologies.
So there are some things that you would expect to introduce the ideas and develop some of those skills within digital technologies, but then it's very much the expectation that teachers in other learning areas would be building on that. So I'm glad without having to go through too many, you got to one of the trick cards. And I think that's where the subtlety is that there are things that you will do in digital technologies that you expect other teachers to carry on with in other learning areas, and that's when it's clear that something that fits within the ICT general capability. The other thing that many teachers aren't actually aware of is that the general capability actually has a learning continuum of its own, and that's kind of the equivalent of the sequence of content that we have in the learning areas. So if you're unsure about exactly what your school should be doing in terms of the ICT capability, it's worth going to the Australian Curriculum website and having a look at the learning continuum. And I can see Owen over there on screen number
already
2,
diligently
racing to get
link.
the URL. Yeah, fantastic. All right, now I'm going to leave you guys in the capable hands of Nicky and Owen for the next bit. I wish I could stay here, but a budget meeting calls. I know.
Such fun.
Exactly. It's my superpower, writing budgets. So I hope you guys find the rest of the webinar useful. Love to hear your feedback later on. I don't know whether are we setting up a survey or are we just going to ask for email feedback? What's our plan on this front, gang?
We'll figure that out afterwards.
All right.
First, we needed to check that anyone would turn up.
Yes, that's good.
Thank you.
Thank you, audience, for appearing. It's always very lonesome when you're talking straight into the ether on
People
a
might view it
webinar.
later. You never know.
So let us know. Send it. Let's just make it simple. Send an email to help@ACA if you've got any hints for what you would have liked more of or less of.
What you would like more of or less of next time.
We're also
you want more sass, right?
No, you don't need more sass. Not from you two, at least, anyway. Also, let us know how you went with Crowdcast, whether you had any issues using it, how the audio and video was. I mean, sure, Crowdcast will ask at the end, but they're probably not going to tell us the answer to that because we're still also doing a test run of the different webinar tools. So if you do find this webinar interesting and come to the next one, don't be surprised if we're trying a different tool each time until we work out which of those we're going to run with in the long term. So thanks, everyone. Have a good afternoon.
Bye, James.
And good luck with implementing digital technologies. Thank you.
Okay.
Keep going on these cards.
What do we say about James talking too much?
Usually we say that after he's left the room.
Remember, it's being recorded, you two, and I can have you fired before the start of the day tomorrow.
We're free. All right, let's keep going. I should actually just say the other thing with this is that it's a fun activity, and precisely that. Where does this particular one fit in? So you put them out in the staff room and get your teachers to try and divvy it up into the two halves of what fits where, and then that sort of sparks that discussion. If you've got suggestions for other things that you think we should add to those cards, let us know if we need a specific.
You can download the cards on our resources page. I just posted a link in the chat as well. There's a bunch of other resources there that we might talk about in a minute.
Great.
All right. Next question is differentiation with this content. Lesson plans look good, but I'd like more suggestions on how to differentiate it in the lessons plan that isn't just lower ability kids get through less of the assigned activities. Yes, that is a good question. So how we've designed the materials is for the programming concepts. Lots of the challenges are actually mirrored with the 5.6 and 7.8. So the Python chatbot is a good example of this, where the content is very similar for the years 5.6 year level and the 7.8 Python. But the difference is that one is in blocks, which is a better way to introduce these programming concepts without actually worrying about the syntax and getting all of the Python syntax niceties right. You don't have to get the indentation correct or worry about the colon after your if statement, for example. And so by starting students that are less comfortable with the block version and then moving them on to the Python version is something that we actually design the material around doing. So you can actually absolutely just do that. For all of the challenges, each of the concepts has 2 questions per concept, with the idea being that it gives you the option as a teacher to demonstrate the first question to the class so that you can show how to do that question and introduce the concept that way. And then the students can go and then practice that concept independently in the next question. So that's how we design the materials about that. And we should probably reflect that in the lesson plan a bit better. We
also obviously want to allow for a fair amount of flexibility for teachers to make those decisions as to how exactly they'll be using the resources. But Amanda's also just jumped in there. Sherry, was that a request for more scaffolding for classroom use? If that's the sort of thing that would be useful, then please do let us know. We want to know, and similarly, give us votes on what you think would be useful, what you'd like to see more of. We're super receptive to that sort of thing if it's within the realms of possibility. Generally speaking, we also want more ideas for differentiation. Things that you can use in class in terms of using unplugged activities and then sort of perhaps more project-led activities as extension resources. Although, yeah, certainly we don't want to just say, go over here and do this other thing. That's definitely copying out. So just as an example, Sherry's asked for an example of those questions, those 2 questions. Let me see if I can share my screen again. Let's jump over to here. So if I go over to here, here I have logged in as a demo teacher. I'm just going to look at the ACA resources here by filtering on this checklist, on the checkbox, and I'm going to look at the chatbot. In fact, I can just search for chatbot. So now I can see that there are the 2 courses here that I've got that are possible. There's the Blockly version and the Python version. So this is a way that you can differentiate between the blocks. So I'll jump over to one of these examples. This is just teaching the concept of output. So we can use these blocks to print that content to the screen. Old silent pond, oops. And you can see that as I'm typing, the Python code down the bottom here, I should probably zoom in quite a lot, shouldn't I? I've done this before. So as I'm putting these blocks together, Python code is actually being generated as well. So the students are getting familiar with text-based programming syntax as they're still using that visual programming environment that they're perhaps familiar with from scratch. So this is the block version, and you can see we've got one question here, which introduces a concept using printing more than one message, and then another question which uses those same concepts immediately afterwards, so that students can have a go at either solidifying their learning and trying to really dig deep to get mastery, or teachers can use the first version of those questions as a whole class collaborative endeavor, solving it together on the whiteboard, and then having the students copy that solution and then modify that solution for that next question that is a very similar concept, but a different question. So that's the Blockly version. If I jump back a few, we can then look at the Python version. So this course is very similar. We've had to add in a few extra concepts, and we're also taking a few extra things. So here, if I jump over to this question, meet the puppy, we've just introduced the concept of variables and reading input from the user. Similarly, we have one question here that asks us to do something. We could use this question to answer it collaboratively with the class, and then have the students independently solve this next question, which uses those same concepts, and see whether the students can transfer that knowledge that they put the solution together with help from the rest of the class, whether they can implement it themselves. Hopefully that answered that question.
Okay.
All right.
All right. All right. So there is a couple more questions that all have one. Where can you get the cards? Jackie, I posted a link to the cards. It's on our resources page, but I will post a link in that question as well. So
just generally speaking, you can get all of our resources that we produce will be available via the ACA webpage, aca.edu.au. There's a /resources.html, which will put all of these printables and various content up there, or they'll have links to the interactive versions from that website as well. All right, why don't we, Owen, you can choose one.
Okay, when is the next ACA workshop near me?
That's an excellent question, Owen.
Okay, so we are running a series of 82 two-day workshops right around the country. That is in every state and territory we've been to so far. We go everywhere. So there's very few places that we don't go actually. And so the next on our events page on our website.
Let's take a look.
Is where the next series of workshops are. I believe they're in Victoria.
So on the website, we've got this page that determines what a workshop actually is. Generally, it's 2 days of hanging out with us and having some fun and learning some content. James gave you the full spiel before, but there's a lot more heckling involved than he would lead you to believe. So our next workshops, you can look at on this events page. We've got some in Tasmania. We've got a whole bunch coming up in Victoria. And specifically, if you know some teachers in Victoria, we would love you to recommend that they come along. We're going to be trying out something, a one-day variant of these 2-day workshops, where one day is in person and then the other day is split up into a couple of different webinars that are interactive, just to make sure that as many teachers can come along as possible. Similarly, if you can't see a city near you on this list, which is relatively extensive but not completely extensive, then let us know. What we really need in order to run a successful workshop is a venue and teachers. If you can help us get teachers from your local community to come along, we'd be happy to come out and help support you and your local teaching community. As far as near where you actually, what that qualifies for, it really depends on the area. We've had teachers travel 10 hours in Queensland to get to the nearest workshop, and then again we run workshops in Sydney just for teachers from the local area. The
ones in Queensland actually travelled further because it was on a Thursday and they could go late night shopping.
If you similarly, if you desperately want us to come at a particular time because there's an event or something that you want to share with us or that you want to miss out on, depending on what's at school, then get in touch and we can see what we can sort out. We will be heading to every state essentially over the next little while, so there's no reason that we can't come to a place near you, especially if you're going to help us get a few extra teachers turning up.
Okay. All right. What's next, Nikki?
How do we sign up for the ACA challenges? Let's talk about this. Actually getting your students to use this digital technologies challenges that we've been talking about, that we've been writing. We say they're fantastic. How do I get my students to use it? Well, so James mentioned that access to these challenges is free for all students in 5, 6, 7, and 8. And there'll be more resources coming along for students specifically in years 3 and 4 as well. The easiest way to get your students involved is to sign them up on the platform. The way that you can do that is by following the instructions that we have on our blog. So if I jump back over here, this is our blog, which is blog.aca.edu.au. You can tell how imaginative we are with our naming. One of our blogs there is this one. So you want to get started with the ACA Digital Technologies Challenges. Jump on over there, and there are step-by-step instructions on what you need to do. Basically, you need to sign up to Grok Learning as a teacher. That will also give you access to the teacher notes and worked solutions, which is quite handy. And then follow the register your student steps. Really what's involved there is uploading a list of your students' email addresses, and that's almost pretty much it. You can set up groups. They'll receive an email with instructions on how to sign in and get going. And then they can get started. They will automatically have access to the digital technologies challenges if they are in year 5, 6, 7, or 8. And you can get going. You can then assign tasks to them so that when they log in, they can see exactly what they're supposed to be doing. You can track their progress on the student dashboard. Actually, let's jump back over to the screen share so that you can see that. I'll just give you a quick demo. So this is a demo school. You can see that I've got quite a few students, and I've just drilled down to their progress in a specific course. This is a useful tool to have open when you're in the classroom. If you click on progress here, there's a little arrow next to it. Then you can map by, so sort that student list by progress in that course. So you can see that Hermione here is a bit of an overachiever. She seems to be doing quite well. But some of these other students down here, poor Neville, is finding things a bit tough. This color over here on the right showing their, it shows their progress through the course. In yellow, this yellowy orange shows that they've made an attempt at that question, but haven't yet solved it. So if I jump over here to Padma's question, I've jumped on the one that was yellow, that last one that she'd attempted, and now I can see her actual code output and the test that she failed. So I can try something out to see if I can fix what's going on, or if I'm sneaky, I can look at the teacher notes or the solutions and just see the difference there. And I can test things out here, but this will not be reflected in the student's own output. This is for you to do some experimentation and to check what the right answer is. So using this, you can give that specific feedback. You can look at who needs that, where your intervention would be most beneficial in the classroom at any point in time, so that you can steer your students to the right on the right direction. Have I missed anything about signing up students?
I think you covered that pretty well, Nikki.
Also, you should sign up your students. We've put a lot of effort into these resources. Obviously, we want them to be used and useful. They're free. Please let us know if there's something that you that's preventing you from using them, or even better, let your colleagues know that they should be using them. Talk to your feeder schools, talk to your local high schools, talk to anyone. That's what we do. I'm almost at the point of stopping people on the street and saying, hey, are you a teacher?
And if you want to give us feedback, then we have stickers, and we have a bit of a teacher, I guess it's a teacher pyramid scheme in order to get students to sign up for the challenge. Rewards.
Incentives? Incentives.
So if you want to email us that you came to this webinar, for example, that would qualify you to get an ACA sticker for interacting with the ACA. We'll actually mail you one of these. If you come along to a workshop, you can get the workshop sticker. The workshop sticker is a coffee cup, and because all the workshops are powered by caffeine. If you sign up to be a champion teacher,
you
then
get this shiny apple
shiny
sticker.
apple. And if you get a bunch of stickers, like I have on the back of my laptop,
that middle one there is the gave us feedback on a challenge. It makes a very pleasing hexagonal structure, I have to say.
And if you get 5 stickers, then you get a lanyard.
Yep.
And then if you sign up,
if you get 5 lanyards, you can weave yourself a blanket. Is that where we're going here?
So, and if you sign up, or if you have other teachers that you've signed up who also sign up students to the ACA challenges, and if you get over, I think it's 100, 150, then we'll send you a t-shirt, a fancy ACA t-shirt. And if you sign up a whole year group as well, that entitles you to something else. And we have a blog post that...
Owen, I'm so bad at remembering all of these things. Where will I ever remember all of these things? Well, there's a blog post you can see. In fact, in that one, we're even wearing the authentic hoodies and or t-shirts. You can see the specifics of this particular rewards program. Yes. No. We want your help, and we want to recognize that you are giving this help freely and that it's valuable. So if that involves sending sticker packs to your school, we can absolutely do that. Shoot us through an email and we will sort it out.
All right. Chrissy asks, can we send a promo pack to schools?
If you send us if we can send the stickers out if you say that you have qualified for those stickers. So if you give us feedback on a challenge, or if you sign up your students, I think that qualifies. It does qualify for certain stickers.
In terms of a promo pack for other things, we have a flyer that we can absolutely send to you. You can also download our flyer. I think it's get.gl/ACA-flyer. I'll post a link in the chat.
So if this is what you were thinking of in terms of a promo pack, then yes is the answer. If there's something else that would help you in actually in getting buy-in from your from the schools from the teachers in your school, from your head of department, or from other schools in your area, let us know. We really want these resources to be useful. That means we need to get them actually being used by as many kids as possible and by as many teachers as possible.
Okay. All right.
How do I get other teachers from my school on board? Well, once they see your shiny stickers and the lanyard. Well, the lanyard. So this is a good, it's actually a much harder question to answer than just by sheer bribery, although bribery does seem to work quite well.
Yeah.
Occasionally, depending.
There's a few ways that we recommend getting other teachers involved. I think the first thing is getting other teachers to realize that they're actually doing lots of digital technologies already, but they're not necessarily using that kind of vocabulary. This is particularly relevant in primary schools. So for example, things like in the data representation key concept of the digital technologies curriculum, there's lots about representing things as numbers and the place value system and how we even develop the number system. And this ties really well with the maths curriculum. And they're actually teaching lots of these ideas already. Similarly, with algorithms, an algorithm is just a sequence of steps in order to achieve a goal. So in following instructions, you're doing algorithms every day. And it's just applying that terminology and putting a bit more of a formal language around what algorithms are and how we use them to solve problems is what where the digital technologies part comes in. But we're using algorithms all the time. Same thing with abstraction, abstracting away the irrelevant details, and only focusing on a manageable number of aspects is something that we do in communication all the time. So the example that we like to give is if we were to get up in the morning, if I asked Nicky, how did you get to work today? And she said, my alarm went off at 5:45. I hate mornings, so I hit snooze. Then it went off again 10 minutes later. I still didn't want to get up and I hit snooze. And then it went off again 10 minutes later and she hit snooze again. And then eventually...
but I got up by sitting up at 90 degrees. I lifted my ankle at 20 degrees and I turned slightly and then I applied. You can see... So
if she continued on with that level of detail until she got into the office, then I would move offices and not sit next to Nicky at all, ever. So we naturally know how to answer that question is I rode my bike or I got on the bus. And we hide away all the irrelevant details and only focus on what's relevant in a given context. And so say, for example, if you're asking someone you don't really know.
Mansplaining is definitely, yes, yes.
If you don't know how, if you ask someone, how are you? They're always going to answer good, even if their arm has been recently amputated and there's blood spurting out. They'll just answer, I'm doing fine. But that depends on the given level of context as well. And so that's what abstraction is. So if you want to get an overview of these 10 key concepts, then we can look on our website. Maybe we can screen share that. So on our website, we have a bit of an overview of those 10 key concepts, which the curriculum is based off. So if we look at the curriculum section, these 10 key ideas is what everything in the digital technology curriculum is based around. And so all of the threads and all of the content descriptions in the national curriculum are based on these 10 key ideas. So understanding these ideas directly translates into understanding everything you need to know about digital technologies. And you'll see through these concept breakdowns that the concepts build in sophistication through the year level. So understanding that one key idea, like representing data, that just builds in sophistication over time. But the idea actually remains the same. And so these tables is a great way to look at the curriculum and look at how each new idea is introduced at each year level in the national curriculum.
So for each of these, we also have the specific curriculum wording from the digital technologies curriculum for each band level, and then a representation of that in table form. So you can see that how each concept builds up in complexity through the year levels. And I think someone in the chat I saw suggested that we could have more discussion on those 10 key curriculums in a future webinar. And I think that's an excellent idea. There's one question that remains unanswered, which we can definitely throw in quickly. What unplugged resources do we have? Well, we've got a few. I mentioned our shiny General ICT versus, I can stop screen sharing, General ICT versus Digital Technologies cards.
Yep. We've also developed some resources for the primary year levels, the lower primary year levels. And so some teachers in Tasmania said they use the BBots, but they can't really afford them. What they do is get a picture of a BBot and print it out and use the Flatbot. And so we made this thing called the Wombot.
This is Flatso, the flat wombat. The
Flatso the Wombot. You can, so that's what he's called, and there's instructions of how you use it. So basically the idea is you can print these off and laminate them, and then write the instructions as a sequence of steps in order to solve a problem. So this is a great way to introduce algorithms to the earlier year levels. So if you get a texter, and then you can write your sequence of instructions, then the students can physically move Flatso and move him around to solve a problem. And if he solves it correctly, then you can migrate and up to programming it in on a real BBot. And this is a great way to
get that testing content going.
Yeah, and make it a lot cheaper as well.
Much more scalable.
And so if you can't afford to buy a set of BBots that costs around $90 each, or $100 for the rechargeable versions, and the Bluetooth versions are another $100 on top of that, they're about $180 each. If you just want to print off some for free, then you can print off the Flatso, the flat-asked Wombot.
Buy one, print many.
On the ACA website. They're on our resources page.
We have a few other resources as well. Where do those cards go?
So one of our unplugged resources is a sorting activity, which is connecting with the biology curriculum. And so that is doing classification of animals. And we got all of these pretty cards designed.
So shiny.
So the idea being we have these sort of animal trading cards that we can lay out and come up with an algorithm to sort through the cards based on those animals' features. So this way we can introduce the biology curriculum in terms of the classification of animals and how animals adapt to survive in different environments, which is in the Year 5 curriculum. And you can sort them by these key cards here. So this is written up as an activity on our resources page as well. So there's also some unplugged activities.
This is a great unplugged activity that you can use as a standalone resource, or that you can link to the Digital Technologies Year 5 challenge that we have, or the Year 7 challenge that's on a related biology classification plus computer science.
And I'm currently finishing off the biology extension challenge, which will be released hopefully in the next week or so. Eventually I'll get it if I can actually get to writing the challenge and not doing all the other stuff that I do.
So much other stuff. There's one other resource that's on our resources page, which is a cipher wheel resource, which looks at cryptography and about a bunch of data representation and other stuff there. But we're out of time, so we'll have to discuss that in another webinar. I've had fun.
I've had fun too, Nicky. Thanks you all so much for coming. If you have any other questions or ideas that you want us to answer right now, then now would be the time. But otherwise, we're going to say goodbye, and thanks so much for coming. It was good fun. If you want ideas, if you want topics you want us to cover in future webinars, then
send us your questions via any means you like.
Please send us an email to help@aca.edu.au.
Or tweet at us, or post a link on our Facebook page, or really anyway, carrier pigeon.
Yep, carrier.
I would love to receive a carrier pigeon message, especially if it was something that I could act on. So let us know what you'd like, what would be useful, and spread the word.
So I think the next one will be on covering one of those key concepts. So we might look at doing data representation or we might look at doing one on whatever one that you would want us to cover. We'll have a go.
It might just be us hanging out with Flatso, figuring out sequencing for an hour. That sounds fun too.
That sounds fun. Or we could do an intro to programming or something like that. Anything like that. So I think the next one will be in a fortnight from now, which will be the Tuesday after next. Which is, I'm going to actually find out what date that is.
Dates and everything.
That is going to be
Planning.
on the 22nd of this month, 22nd of May. Okay.
Great. We hope to see you then, and give us a shout out in the meantime.
I look forward to seeing the carrier pigeon, Chrissy. Thanks so much, guys. Have a good afternoon.
Bye.